Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and welcome to Fantasy Pros, where fantasy sports lives. I am your host, and today we got a great guest for you today. He is one of our writers for the Fantasy Black Book. He is also FSWA Baseball Writer of the Year 2019. He is also Article Baseball of the Year 2020 for FSWA, five-time nominee, Tout Wars champion, ATC projectionist. Oh my goodness, all-around good guy. He writes at Fangraph, CBS, Rotoballer. He's everywhere. He's the one, the only, Ariel Cohen. Ariel, welcome to the program, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for that very warm introduction, Joe. How have you been?
I've been great, man. It's nice to finally talk to you. I know we're coming up in baseball season, and just to let you know, too, Ariel, despite all of those amazing accolades that he has, I'm going to throw another one on there, which is he also pays his debts, because I still have him right here. Oh, look at him.
Yeah, baby.
24 home runs for Jose Altuve a few years ago, and I got this fancy Game of Thrones bobblehead thanks to Ariel Cohen because he paid up. So it's the one time the projections were wrong. Just the one time.
One time.
I cashed in on it, and we had a fun wager. But like I said, all-around great guy, all-around great baseball guy, and also pathetic Mets fan like myself. So we're going to get to that later in the show because we're going to go through some fun stuff today. Today's show, we're going to do fantasy or reality. At the end of the show, have some fun. We're going to do mailbag, take a question or two if we have time. We're also going to talk mainly today about players that Ariel and I don't see eye to eye on, because I think it's a good, healthy discussion to look at other people's rankings as you were and compare them to other people's rankings and have the conversation of why is there a gap of 40 picks between this player and that player. I think it's a very important thing to do, and I think that that is something that we should all, take into consideration, be willing to have these conversations, and hopefully if you're on the fence about some of these players, we'll be able to talk to you about them, and maybe you'll come away with a little sense of more confidence or less, depending upon the player, of course. But before we get into all that, I want to tell everybody we got a new jersey giveaway going on, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. Very excited about this one. I am mad that I can't get involved in this one because I work for Fantasy Pros, but if you go to www.fantasypros.com/MLB contest, once again, that is www.fantasypros.com/MLB contest, you can win an autographed Juan Soto jersey. Oh, my first pick in TGFBI today was Juan Soto. I'm so excited about that. Here's how you get involved. You go to Apple Podcasts or CastBox. You leave an honest review. You take a screenshot of that review and that feedback. You go to www.fantasypros.com/MLB contest, and you then just fill out the form, submit the screenshot, boom, you are entered to win. It is brilliant, and that is going to be a fantastic opportunity. So this is the month of March. You get in there, again, fantasypros.com/MLB contest, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com. Great site, too. I'm still trying to get my Ric Flair gear over there on the Pristine Auction. I keep losing stuff, but again, some great stuff there, not just sports-related things. And I want to remind everybody, we've got a great event coming up in just a few weeks here at Fantasy Pros. We're going to be doing a 4-hour live stream. That's right. Dan Harris, me, Joey P., 4 hours of baseball talk with some fantastic analysts like Ariel Cohen, like Justin Mason, like Eric Cross, The Welsh, Bogman, Nick Pollock, Alex Fast, Chris Meany. The list goes on and on and on. We got so many great people coming in to join us. So when is it? It is Friday, March 12th. Again, Friday, March 12th. We are starting at noon Eastern, high noon, guns a-blazing. That's what we're going to do. It's going to be fantastic. So here's how you get involved in this. Go to our YouTube channel. Now, I know everybody out there, you got the Fantasy Pros NFL channel and all that stuff for Fantasy Pros. We have our own channel for MLB, so we don't bother the football guys because Tags, he doesn't understand the round ball. He just doesn't get it. Doesn't understand it at all. So go to youtube.com/FantasyProsMLB. Again, it's Fantasy Pros MLB YouTube channel. You subscribe, you click the bell for notifications, and you can hang out with us, ask us questions of the experts, and be involved. So that's Fantasy Baseball Fest for Fantasy Pros this coming March 12th, Friday at noon Eastern till 4 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be awesome. Ariel Cohen, I am ready to talk baseball to you. Now, you and I have got our names. We're going to start with some players in the sub 100 area that we have very different. So let's start off with Tyler Glasnow, who is now the ace of the Tampa Rays, for better or for worse. No more Blake Snell. We no longer have Charlie Morton there, so Glasnow is the man. He is the number one. You are very bullish on him. I am less so. So tell me why Tyler Glasnow is so much higher for you in your rankings than mine.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Glasnow is somebody who threw 38% strike rate last night, last year, that is.
I was going to say last night. That's a hell of a night.
Yeah. So, he only pitched 57 innings last year, which is a pace of 155 innings. But at that pace, if you scale up what his strikeouts would have been in a full season, he would have had 246 strikeouts. Think about that. 246 in just 155 innings. So the question is he going to pitch that much? I don't know. At that kind of level, he's amazing. His walks are still high. That's the one thing I worry about. But this is a guy who had a 1.01 whip in the last 2 years combined. So we're talking about a ratio stabilizer. You got the strikeouts, the ratios. We're talking somebody who's pretty much an ace that you're going to get in the fifth round of 12-team leagues. I think it's a steal.
Okay, here's here's my rebuttal. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back and forth. It's not that we don't like these players. Of course we do. I'd be happy to have Tyler Glasnow. I'm all about it. It's just a matter of where we value them. So you mentioned the walk rate. That's where I get hung up on, because the walk rate to me still shows a picture of inefficiency. Here's a fascinating little nugget for you, a simple one. His walk rate in the minor leagues, 4.2. His walk rate in the major leagues, 4.2. We have yet to see any real headway, like significant headway for him. Now, that's not to say he can't get there. And he could easily get there this year. But to me, inefficiency always leads to what? 5-inning starts, which kills you in the quality starts, which hurts you in points leagues, which hurts you in quality start leagues, and potentially hurts you in wins leagues, despite the fact that they are, obviously a very good bullpen. They obviously always know what they're doing over there when they're managing that bullpen. So that is my argument for the difference between these two guys and us. And again, it's not enormous. It's a plus 31 differential. So Ariel has him 31 spots higher than I do, and that's okay. It's good to have these conversations. So what is it you've seen besides the strikeout rate, which I'm always in love with, that you believe that Tyler Glasnow is ready to be this ace of this rotation now?
No, I think he's going to improve that walk rate. I mean, that's literally the only thing. He's going to generate a third pitch. He's really only a 2-pitch pitcher right now. So he's going to generate a third pitch. He's going to get that walk rate down. And that's the only gap between him and being a surefire first rounder, top 2-3 pitcher. I mean, there's not much left he has to prove. And I don't see the downside here. The downside is he walks a few too many. Look, he pitched last year in the AL East, only in the AL East, NL East. This year he's got an easier schedule, right? And he's still on a good team that can generate him wins if he lasts five innings. I don't see a downside here. I think he's a lot safer than you think, and he's going for much less than there's 12, 13, 14 other pitchers that are being taken before him. I think he's well within that pack. You're getting a steal if you get him as the last one in that tier.
All right, we're going to do a little version of mine now. We'll start with Francisco Lindor, who there is a 25 differential between us. So I have him 25 spots higher than Ariel Cohen does. Ariel, I can only assume it's because you are even more of a self-loathing Met fan than I am. And I thought I was bad. And then I saw your Lindor ranking, and I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with my good friend Ariel? Did he have a problem? Did he just not like Lindor? Is he jealous because he's got the cool hair and the cool jacket going on? The Coming to America jacket? Here's the thing. He has, up until 2020, 3 straight years of 30 bombs. He has 2 straight years of stealing 20 bags. He is always posting an OBP somewhere of 335 and above, or somewhere in that range for the most part, right? And I get it, new surroundings, I get it, New York, all of those things are fine and dandy. But he's going to a good lineup. He's hitting in the same, some of that 2-hole probably most likely is where he's going to be. So I just don't see that weird divide. See, I'd rather have a player maybe, like Lindor, who does so many things great, and maybe he doesn't have the elite stolen base potential. Maybe he's not a 40-50 guy like a Mondesi or somebody like that. But to me, Lindor, until we have this contract in front of us, this extension that we're all hoping for, I know as Mets fans we'd love to see, I can't knock him down so many pegs, and I'm certainly not going to do it based off 2020. Now, I understand 2020 was not ideal, so what's your counter on Francisco Lindor? Walk me through your thoughts there and why you have him so much lower than I do.
Yeah. First of all, you have to recognize that the shortstop position is a phenomenal position this
year. It has gotten better year over year. It's like the antithesis of second base. I will agree with you there.
Yeah, it's really, really, really deep. I think Lindor is a fantastic 5-category guy. He doesn't hurt you anywhere. I don't think he's elite in a lot of the positions there. Batting average, I don't know if he had 258 batting average last year. Going to rebound, but to what? 290, 270. I don't think he's going to hit that 290. That's not elite. I don't think he's a 30 homer guy anymore. His barrel rate has been declining over the last 2 years. Don't think he's a 30 homer guy anymore. Stolen bases, the Mets don't steal. I have Conforto as the next best Met for stolen bases with only 7. I think that he's going to struggle to get to 20. You add it all up, and he's still helpful in every category, but not elite enough in the categories to warrant him as a first-round pick. Again, I'd pick him late in my second round, but as a first-round pick, passing up a lot of other values, I don't know. And I don't know what the difference between him and Tim Anderson, Xander Bogaerts, Corey Seager in value. I think that there's more value to had with those guys. I actually have Lindor ranked below all of them.
Ooh, below Corey Seager even?
Yes.
Oh my goodness gracious, Ariel. I listen, here's the one thing I will say, and I'll bring this up too because I want your opinion on this. I remember having a conversation with Craig Mish, who heard rumblings from a lot of baseball people that generally steals were down last year because of the short season. People told everybody, look, let's not be too aggressive on the base pass. We don't want people getting hurt because you go on the IL for a week or two. That is a big problem, or even a month. That's the whole season. So there was a general pullback in that. Do you think that has anything to do with the totals from last year, not just with Lindor, but across the board?
If you're going to have Pete Alonso bat behind you, you really want to try to steal a base. I think that the Mets are set up not for the steals. The Mets are set up to go yard. And I can see Lindor taking a step back in the stolen base attempts. And with attempts, the success rate is going to go down. And with the attempts, just the whole number is going to go down. Again, if he steals 25, 30 bases, sure, then you're getting a guy who's at the top. If he's not going to steal that 20 bases, you're wasting that first round pick on somebody who might.
All right, so let's go to the next guy on the list that we have a big difference on. It's Trent Grisham in San Diego. So take me through your thoughts on him. Why are you so much higher on him than I am? Last year he hit 251, 808 OPS there, 10 dingers. Pretty good season for him, but again, you know, we're seeing a guy make a big jump year over year, similar amount of games too. He played 51 games in 2019, so he did make a very big jump. The question is this just a small sample size, or is this actual progression and development we're seeing with Grisham?
Yeah, the Padres made a trade for a really good player. Look, his pace last year, if it was a real 162-game season, 27 homers, 27 stolen bases, 113 runs. These are counting stats that you can't get that combination anywhere. He's probably going to bat first in a high-powered San Diego Slam Diego offense, right? He's gonna score a ton of runs.
I haven't heard anybody say Slam Diego yet. Have you been hearing that?
Slam Diego.
Or are you quoting that phrase? I just want to know.
My partner Ruven Guy on the Beat the Shift podcast, he uses that phrase a lot. Slam Diego. And he's gonna bat first there. If I had to pick a lineup that I'd want to hit first, probably gonna be San Diego. So he's going to score a lot of runs. The batting average, okay, I understand if you don't believe him. He's much better in an OBP league, right? He walks a lot. Sure. He had a 12% walk rate last year. Actually, in the minors, he had 15% in his minor league career. So he's an on-base animal here. Batting average, not so great. He had 37 stolen bases in the minors. This guy has speed. ATC's projecting him for almost a 25-10 season. So we're talking about an almost 4 category player, maybe 4.5, you'd say, in an OBP league, going in the 5th rounds of a draft. Again, many paths to value here other than the batting average, and he's going to score those runs. Don't underestimate the runs. You know, what I've learned playing fantasy baseball, most of the time, the person who wins is the one that wins the runs category. It's the most correlated with winning in fantasy baseball is runs. And Trent Grisham gets you that run. So I think he's a decent value.
I agree 100% with what you just said, and I think that is something I want to highlight with one of those big fat yellow highlighters for everybody listening here. So you could hear that screeching right now. That's the sound of the highlighter, because what Ariel said is something I buy into also. And the correlation is not just because of where they're hitting at the order, because typically the better players hit at the top of the order, but scoring runs is what baseball is all about. And if you're scoring runs, that means either you're getting on base to score runs, or you're somebody with elite power, or some combination of those things. So don't dismiss the very simple stat of runs scored, because I think in 5x5s, people are so busy with stolen bases and batting average trying to figure out things, right, Ariel, that at the end of the day, baseball is about scoring runs. And I am so glad, it is so refreshing for somebody else to say that out loud besides me. So listen to what Ariel's telling you. But don't listen to him on this next thing because he's wrong about Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa is just 26 years old. There's a big gap between the two of us where we rank Carlos Correa. We'll get to that in a second. But look, I understand, again, small sample last year. I understand it wasn't the best sample size. Again, if you go back to 2019, he had a 568 slugging. If you go back to 2019 where he played, I know, just 75 games, I get it. It's frustrating. He had a 926 OPS. He was a number 1 overall draft pick. And I feel like we're in the same exact place that we are with Anthony Rendon a few years ago, where Rendon was can't miss. Everybody loved Rendon, and he kept getting hurt, and people just said, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. And then he developed in one of the most consistent hitters in baseball and one of the best fantasy assets, most reliable ones out there. I understand all the injury risk. I understand all of the lost time, and I understand the frustration of wanting to be ahead of the curve when it came to Correa. Now, to me, he's coming at a pretty good value of ADP. And I got to tell you, I'm just not there in terms of giving up. I know why people want to. I get it. I understand that. But take me through the negative because, look, I just gave you the sunny side, the positives on Carlos Correa. I have him at 78 overall, and you have him, I think, at a big difference there. It was a 62-point difference, okay, in terms of ranking here. So, really, I guess the question is, did Carlos Correa, run over your dog? What happened? Why do you hate Carlos Correa so much?
God forbid, run over dog. Looks like we're up for another Houston Astros board bet on this one. I don't know. You love the Astros. I don't know,
buddy. The King might have something to say about that, my friend.
I don't know. We'll see. Here's the thing. It's a game of tell me why I'm wrong. I haven't projected. Well, I haven't projected for 84 RBIs. Great. Okay. 74 runs. 24 homers, a 263 batting average. No steals, 2-3 steals, whatever. That's fine. To me, those projections, I can't poke a hole in getting him any more there. I mean, I'm looking at him.
What's your games played in that projection? I just want to know so I have a frame of reference. Because I think that is everything. If you have him projected for 114 games, yeah, I understand. That's why you knock him down. But if you're projecting for 145, 152, somewhere in that range, where as he's getting older here, and let's not forget it is a contract year, there's a lot of money on the line, big difference in terms of, and we, have gone through this actually on previous shows with Dan here, those elite guys, when they were those top tier free agents, when they smell that contract year, typically it's very good. 70% of the time or so, it is better or at least average what they usually produce. It's very rare they have a down year. So tell me what the game total you have for Correa is.
Yeah, I have 142 games, which is 525 at bats, okay? Sure, you can make the argument, you can get him a little bit more, but you do my evaluations, and we're talking about a guy who's the 16th best shortstop, well out of the top 100. I just can't see any reasons. Now, I just want to tell you something I have with ATC projections this year, not just the actual stats, but what I call interprojection volatility. So the way that ATC is made, it's a confluence, it's an aggregation of many other projection systems underneath. But with that, not only do I get an average, but I get a feel for how different projections are with one another. And for some players, projections are very tight. And I'm pretty convinced that that's, their projection. And for some, they're all over the place. Correa is one of them that has a high projection volatility, all over the place. Sure. So there's not only is there risk of him, all the risk you said, injury, this and that, but there's parameter risk. He might even be lower than this. He's too much risk for me to take on. He's never really done this for a full season. I cannot see him as putting him as my top shortstop in the top 100. Just a value thing for me there.
And you did mention that shortstop is deeper this year, which I also concede is true.
Correct.
Here's a caveat along with that. Would you then say that you are willing to take him, let's say, as your middle infielder? Does all of a sudden some of those things go away because from a relative position value standpoint, for my world, which takes projections into account, but also takes real track record into account and the 3-year averages and all the other stuff, in your opinion, do you think that then you could look at it and say, okay, well, yes, he's risk, but as the middle infielder as opposed to my starting shortstop, there's also the variable of positive potentially too, especially with this looming contract here.
I don't really take contract year into account with these things.
Okay.
I've seen a very small correlation with it. So much so that if you point me to four players that it worked out, I'll point you to 4 players that it just didn't. You
Are
only
those
know
4 players that didn't elite players though? See, that's the thing I keep coming back to. See, I studied like that elite pool of free agents that get long-term contracts. Whereas if you look at what happens is there's a significant turnover every year there's so many 1-year deals. There's so many free agents every year because there's just a lot of mediocre to below average major league players, so there's a higher turnover. So what happens is I feel like that kind of muddies the data of, well, guys have good years and contract years. Well, no, bad guys don't have good years anyway, and that's why they're not very good players, which is why they're 1-year deal spring invite guys.
Now, my study was we're talking about in a what would be above replacement in a 10-team league fantasy. So not elite players, but more than above average players. Right. You only remember the ones that get big contracts. Also, it's also a here thing, a remembrance thing. But as a question, as far as what I take as a middle infielder, yeah, I don't really consider looking for I need a middle infielder, I need a shortstop. I take players where I go, and I give any replacement level bump that I need. Shortstop gets no bump this year. In fact, it actually should go down. It's so deep that you should be focused on outfield more than usual. So for that reason, I'm fading him and bumping up other players in general.
All right, let's continue our dissenting opinions here as we get to players between 100 and 200 ADP. And let's start with Joey Gallo, because there is definitely a difference between your thoughts on Joey Gallo and mine. Look, I'll just be honest. I recognize the power and the upside of Joey Gallo. I get that a couple years ago, the batting average came up to a different level where all of a sudden we started to feel like, oh, maybe there's some development here and something's going the right direction. But batting average can be very arbitrary year over year, and it can be something that fluctuates a great deal. I got to tell you, I've just never been a Joey Gallo guy. I don't like guys that have enormous swing and miss. It's just one of those things. Like, I was never somebody that had a lot of Adam Dunn shares in a lot of leagues and things like that. It just wasn't my kind of dude that I like to build a roster around. Joey Gallo, there's a 42 pick difference in terms of ranking between you and I. So take me through the positives on Joey Gallo, because I think everybody knows the negatives already.
Yeah, he was bad last year, and to be honest, I don't think he's much better than a bad Adam Dunn year, if that makes sense to you. Like Adam Dunn was a player who would hit 40 homers every year, but in a bad year he'd hit 210. In a good year he would hit 250, 260. Gallo is just the bad. He's just the bad. But again, it's 40 homers, it's 90 RBIs, it's 85 runs. We're talking run production. People don't forget, in a 5x5 league, 40% of your offensive total is runs and RBIs. He does that well. Homers, he does especially well. Now, he is not a guy that helps every roster. Most of the time, if you're picking in your draft, you're going to need a little bit more average at the end, a little bit more steals. He does not fit that. In order to roster him, right, this is a roster construction exercise. Right. If you have the batting average and the steals, then because he is going for a bargain and he will fit your roster, he's a perfect fit. So if you can somehow finagle your roster to handle the Joey Gallo, your aggregate value of your team roster is excellent. He does not fit a standard roster going through the auction, going through the draft. He just doesn't. So you have to know what he is. And we talked about the projection volatility. Very low on him. Projections agree.
He's fair.
A bad Adam Dunn.
He is a bad Adam Dunn.
Yes, that's what he is.
And look, I do think, I agree with you. There is something to be said for identification of a player and knowing that, maybe he doesn't have upside, but you know who he is, and there's something that you feel warm and fuzzy about, because at least you know what the stock is you're buying, and if you're not buying it too heavy, that's fine. And you're 100% right. Roster construction is a big part of whether or not you want to get involved in the Joey Gallo business. Now, I'm not sure how much I want to get into the Dylan Bundy business, but I know I want to get into it more than Ariel does. So I look at Dylan Bundy last year, and I understand that a lot of people are not buying the 11 starts that he had, and I just want to point out 2 of those starts he gave up more than 4 earned runs. The rest were all less. He also had 3 starts where he had double-digit strikeouts. He also had 2 with 8 strikeouts. So I understand there's always concerns with every pitcher. There's certainly Dylan Bundy. You can point to a guy who's had a very difficult road. But I also think that there's something to be said for getting out of Baltimore, which seems to be an organization that for the last decade plus, Ariel, has really struggled in terms of developing young pitching, whether it goes back to Arrieta, when it goes back to Gausman, when it goes back to any of these guys that they had in that organization. They just have not been able to get them right for them. And then they go off and they have varying levels of success eventually. And I'm not saying Dylan Bundy is an ace, but I do think if you're looking for strikeouts and you can't have enough strikeouts, that there's reason to like Dylan Bundy. I think there's also reason to think that the Angels are going to do everything they can to be competitive this year because it's Pujols' last season. It's Mike Trout. They hear all of the things about why, the Angels aren't better. Why aren't they in the playoffs more? Look at all this money they're spending. I think there's a little bit more pressure on the Angels this year, even more than last year because of 2020 being a shortened season. So I understand there's a chasm between us. So for you, why is it that Dylan Bundy is just not a guy that you want to seem to invest in? Because there's a 36 differential between these two where we have them ranked.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the fact that he got out of Baltimore, check. That was great. Great. No question he's a better pitcher. Man. Yeah, look, he's always had the strikeouts. K per 9 to 10. That's been the same. He's been doing that. His walk rate was the big thing. He's chopped that down. It was 8% before, and now it's 6%. That might actually even hold. So there we go. But we're talking about luck metrics. He was on the lucky side last year. Low BABIP, low strand rate, homer per fly ball. Much lower than usual. Some of that has to do with the ballpark change. But look who we had to face. I'll read his starts. Texas, Arizona, Texas, Houston, Seattle, Oakland, Giants, Oakland, Seattle, Seattle, Oakland. Do you see any Dodgers in there? Do you see any Yankees in there? Do you see anybody who's any good? This is a guy
but you know what I do see year over year? I see that he's still pitching in the West, so he means he still gets to face the Rangers. He still gets to face the Mariners.
But it makes last year's numbers actually worse if you normalize them for there. Okay. Look, he's a guy. I'm not saying that he's going to be a train wreck this year, but if you're going to take him in the 9th round where he's going, I don't see the profit. Now, let me just read you my ATC volatility metrics. Yes. He's got one of the lowest. He is a lowest volatility guy. Means projections agree, and they agree with me that he's lower. And
wait, are you saying your projections agree with you? Oh, it's stunning, Ariel.
Well, what I'm saying is all the projections agree with each other, which I'm in the middle of all of them. Now, I talked about volatility, but there's also something I call interprojectional skew. So when you have different projections surrounding, sometimes they're all evenly distributed up and down, but sometimes there's one projection that's way lower and that's bringing down the ATC average, or something that's way higher, positively skewed, that's bringing up the average, but he's got more projections lower. Dylan Bundy has one of the highest positively skewed projections, meaning there's somebody who really likes him projection-wise, but the numbers are actually worse than the ATC average. So there's parameter risk downside. So projections are really sure of themselves, and there's a skewed downside. There's no profit to be had where he's taken. So I do not like him from a profit perspective whatsoever.
All right, now you like Mark Khanna from a profit perspective because I certainly don't. There's a 60 differential there between us on Mark Khanna, and I like, position flexibility. I certainly I was paying attention to a couple years ago in 2019 where he had that, I guess you want to call it a breakout season, whatever you want to call it, where the 26 home runs happened. And there seemed to be at least a decent positive move forward. And then last year there was some regression in there. Again, it's hard to take it too seriously because 2020 was obviously a very strange season and a small sample. The OBP was still good, but what is it you see in Khanna that you, I guess, from 2019 that you're still believing in so much as opposed to the rest of the body of work from 2015 to 2018 where it was just kind of a guy floating around, and then last year looked a little bit more like that guy than the guy of 2019 breakout?
Yeah. To me, he's been the same player his whole career, and he's been about a $10 auction equivalent 15-team league. He's going in the 18th round. It's not a question of getting better skills. It's not a question of doing it. He's doing what he has done. He's actually even walking. His skills are actually improving. He's walking more. He's stealing some. He's hitting for power. He had 26 homers in 2019. So he's just doing everything he's doing a little bit better, and it's just where he's going. If you're going to be around in the 18th round, this is somebody who can give you 10 rounds higher production and is very, very positive. He doesn't even have to have a high upside. It's just the value for where he's going. He's one of the highest bargains according to the ATC projections versus the market. So again, I'm not in love with him as a player. I don't think he's very interesting, but I'm hoping nobody else does. And nobody else is thinking he's interesting. And I'll swoop in and I don't mind getting a little bit of profit on him, but I have a very high probability of having a profit on him.
All right, fair enough. I think every player in his place. I think, what's fun about this exercise is that we're not dismissing any of these guys. So don't understand that you could hear as we're talking about it. It's all about what makes sense. So it's all about understanding the player and his relative value, depending on what format you're playing in, the style you're playing in, the depth of the league you're playing in, the kind of draft that you're having. Is it an auction like Ariel's talking about with some of these players, right? So, so much of this, and this is why I like talking to you, because we don't always agree on everything. And that's good conversation, but it also helps everybody else when you're trying to get a good approach and understand where there might be some value on the board. Now, I understand there's a huge risk when it comes to Frankie Montas, and there's a 40+ difference between your ranking and mine on Frankie Montas. I'm much higher on him than you. The back was an issue last year. The year before he had the PED suspension, I get it. I was somebody that had Montas when he was very good 2 years ago. I had a lot of shares of him last year where it was not good, so I understand. I've lived through the good and the bad. I don't want 2021 to be ugly. I think what I've seen so far is he has slipped in drafts to a point where I think it makes sense to me to take that risk. I am comfortable with that risk because I've seen enough of the good version of him, and if last year was indeed a health issue more than anything with the back, you go to that last start where he was healthy again, he looked like Montas. And I get you don't want to put too much into one start, certainly. However, I think Montas for me is still a guy that I'm willing to invest in because pitching is very difficult this year. I've seen the upside of Montas, and there's a lot of guys going in that same range who have potential, but have not realized it yet the way Montas has at certain times in his career. So that's my big take on Montas. What is your downside of Montas that you are concerned with, or what basically constitutes the difference, in your opinion, for the difference in value?
Yeah. So this one is not a question of me being that down on him. I think it's more of a question of you being high. I'm actually pretty close to where the market is. Okay. So it's more the descent between us is that. He's a risk. As you know, is he there? The walks are still an issue, right? I mean, like you mentioned up top, still glass now walks. The walks are still an issue with Montas. He gives up a lot of line drives. If you look at his breakdown between fly balls, ground balls, and line drives, it's a very high line drive profile that's going to lead to a lot of hits. So it's not somebody I think is going to ever correct that fully. I don't think you're going to see this very low whip guy. So he doesn't especially help your ratios, but there is more upside with him, I admit, than some of the other players. His interprojectional skew is very negative, so I do see upside with him. Just a question of, do you want to take him in the 12th round? And again, I'm not low on as compared to the market, so if he fits my profile there, I'm in on him. I think there is upside, so I'm not really in fully disagreement with you. I just don't want to pick him as high as you are.
Okay, very good. Fair enough. Now let's get to post 200 players. So these are some of the deeper names. And let's start with Joey Votto. And let's start with yours because I'm just out of the Joey Votto business. I am. I feel like, and I maybe it's because a couple years ago I tried to make excuses for Joey Votto and he disappointed me. And look, we're all human beings at the end of the day. As good as we are as analysts, we're wrong sometimes. We just are. And I know that is earth-shattering to hear that any fantasy analyst is wrong because God knows they don't like to talk about when they're wrong. But we are sometimes. And a couple years ago, I was giving Joey Votto the benefit of the doubt. He's another year older. I see some weird inconsistencies with the Reds. I just feel like I just can't get there with Joey Votto. Once again, every player in his place. You're in a very deep league. You're looking for an extra bench guy or something like that. That's fair. But I'm just not buying into any small sample Joey Vottos because the longer track record of the last 3 years is strong enough for me that it's just heading in the wrong direction. So that's where I'm at with Joey Votto. But do you see anything left there that you get excited about, any potential for Joey Votto in 2021?
Rob Silver says that, Hall of Famers tend to do Hall of Fame type things. Joey Votto to me is a Hall of Famer. And look at last year. Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
I do not. I
all right.
Will fight. Let's fight about that.
Don't like Canadians?
What? Oh, no, it's the opposite. I love Canadians. They are, and I will always say this, the best Americans. Let me tell you something. Chris Meany is the poster child for all that is right with Canadians. But good pal. I just don't see him ever as... He is a guy that had some really great seasons statistically for a short period of time, but Joey Votto is not a transcendent player. Joey Votto is not a generational Hall of Fame talent. I mean, look at Scott Rowland has a hard time getting in the Hall of Fame. Put Joey Votto in the Hall? This is a whole podcast you and I can have about Joey Votto, but I digress. So if Rob Silver and you think Joey Votto is Hall of Famer, I go ahead, talk me through it.
Well, I mean, look, a career 304 batting average in this era, 300 homers or so. All right, he's a maybe Hall of Famer. All right, he's not a surefire Hall of Famer.
No.
But the point is, he's a great player. And he hit the pace of 30 home runs last year. Not out of the question to do that. I'm not projecting for that. He's hit 300 in the past. I'm projecting him for 255. Okay, he's going to be in the heart of the Reds lineup, so he's going to score runs. We're back to that runs thing. He had a pace of 86 runs last year. I'm projecting him for somewhere in the 70s. You do the math, he is well worth picking in the 22nd round where he's going. Now, here's the thing, though, and that's in the 15-team league. I think it really matters what kind of league you're in here. If you're in a deeper league here, I think Votto now is of value. If you're in a 10, 12-team league, I think he just doesn't have the upside to really warrant a selection, right? If I'm in a 10-team league, at that position there, which is like a bench player, you need to pick upside, and Votto's not going to have it. But if you're in a 15-team league and you need the volume, Votto will get you the volume, and I think he still has enough in this one extra season that he's going to go. So it really matters where you are and how you use him. But I'll say one other thing. If you're in an auction, and I call it the Joey Votto bid, throw out Joey Votto for $1. I will gladly take Joey Votto for $1. I do not want him for $2, even though I think he's worth $5. But if as soon as somebody says 2-3, you collapse his return on investment for somebody else. The idea is you want the highest.
Because even though we disagree so much, like when you say crazy things like Joey Votto's a Hall of Famer, you then turn right around and say something that I love like this again, which is, and you and I are big auction guys. Like this is where we like to live. And you're 100% right. There's nothing I love more than getting a
throw him in the middle.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Once you pay $4 for Joey Votto, you've crushed any possible return.
Yeah, so throw him out in the middle of the auction. If you get your dollar, you get a very cheap corner infielder that's going to be a good return on investment. And by the way, if he stinks, you drop him. He's $1. But then somebody else is wasting money. Like I know you're big on getting people to waste money. Doesn't have to be at the top. It can be in the bottom. And Votto is the perfect guy to extract and collapse the return on investment. How do you like that?
I love it, man. Dude. I think it's great. All right, this is the biggest cavern between us. It's Gavin Lux at 103. So I am 103 picks higher than you. And baseball has become a young man's game. And I think this is, maybe the difference of things. And I understand they don't need to have Gavin Lux there. But, going into last year, Gavin Lux was the odds-on favorite over on FanDuel, I remember, to be Rookie of the Year. And they didn't break camp with him. And I think that it mentally took its toll on him. I'm just going to put it out there. I think it's a confidence issue with Gavin Lux. I don't think it's a huge performance issue. I think it's just a matter of mentally the disappointment of that, the confusion of that. And then for these kids to kind of stay right, in these B games and these other things that they were doing and stuff like that, it's tough, man. I want to take 2020, just throw it out for Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux was a player people were very aggressive on last year. I was not, but I think it's gone the opposite way now where I think there's value there. So what is it that you don't see that I see when it comes to Gavin Lux?
Yeah, I think it's another case where I'm more towards the market and you're a little bit higher. The question is, does he have a starting job? Will he actually make the major league roster? I actually don't know the answer to that. And I just don't. He's going in the 17th round, which is higher than some of the other guys we talked about. At that spot, I want somebody that has a starting job, and I don't know. What is the difference between Lux and I'll read you a couple of other guys who are going lower? Brandon Nimmo, Jackie Bradley will make a team.
Well, I love Brandon Nimmo, so you bring his name up, I am very excited.
Starlin Castro, even Jazz Chisholm. I don't know. Is Jazz Chisholm going to get fewer at bats than Gavin Lux? I don't know.
I think so.
I don't. Maybe, but I'm just throwing it out as a hypothetical here. Sure. I don't see a reason to pay a 16th round price for Gavin Lux for the uncertainty of that. I just don't. He's got a very high interprojectional standard deviation of 6. That's one of the highest in the game there. Projections are volatile. I just don't see it. Now, I'll say the opposite I said for Joey Votto. In a 10-12 team league, much more appealing because the upside is higher. So in a 15-team league where I need the counting stats, in a mono league, in an NL only league, I need the counting stats. I don't want to rely on him. But in a shallower league where he's cheaper, he's $1, $2 player at the very end, that's the kind of guy you want to take a gamble on. It's not just about knowing who the player. It's knowing how to use them for the right spot.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that's what I always try to do in the Black Book, and that's why I'm always happy that you're a contributor too, because I think we see that the same way, which is understanding. Okay, yeah, you can have this player, or this player does have use. That there's far too much, and I'm sure you are. This probably drives you crazy as much as it drives me. There's far too much generalities when we talk about players. Like we need to be hyper focused on the player. Maybe he's just a good player for DFS because he has good splits for lefty righty. Like maybe you just everybody has a purpose for the most part. I think you just got to understand how to use them and how to get the most out of them. All right, let's end with your last one here, and then I'll go with mine. Leody Taveras, we have a big difference on, so walk me through your thoughts on Taveras in 2021.
Okay. I think he is the starting center fielder for the Texas Rangers. I don't see anybody else really in their roster that's going to get a lot of the playing time. So I think that it's very possible that projections are even light on what he has. Now, we're talking about a guy. The question is he a major leaguer? Well, he had a 95 WRC plus, which I think is high enough for Texas to say, okay, you've got enough offense that you're a major leaguer, you got the glove, you're fast, you'll be in the lineup. I can't tell you whether he's going to be a leadoff guy or bat ninth. He might be the batting ninth guy, right? That I can see. So, but yeah, still on the lineup. I'd rather have a batting ninth than not batting at all. His problems is the strikeouts. He had a 32% strikeout rate. He didn't have that high in the minors. He's actually a pretty good contact hitter, so I'm hoping he'll address that. He walks quite a lot. His minors track record is fantastic, and he walked 10% of the time last year. You're also not getting a zero in power. A lot of people think the guys at the bottom, Malik Smith types, you're getting zero power and you're getting stolen bases. Not him. He'll hit a couple he'll hit a couple of homers. I project him for 13 homers. He had 4 homers last year. So you're getting somebody in late mid rounds that can steal 20, 25 bases. You can't really find many of those available down there, but Taveras is one. Not a blank in power. And if he does bat first, we're getting a lot of runs anyways. So I think there's enough in the profile to make him very interesting to draft. And once you get him, it's so much easier to find a player who's going to have 70 RBIs and 30 homers rather than the guy who can hit a little homers but more stolen bases. So he'll fit very nicely in teams, and that's why I think he's worth where he's going.
You know what's good? So there's 2 guys so far in all of our discussion that, and I think this is good, when you have these discussions and you really listen, that I've been positively influenced on Taveras by you and Grisham by you. Those were the 2 that I had some room there, and I think I will go back to my rankings and look at them again and probably.
And I'll go for Montas. I think that Montas, you've pointed out a couple things, and maybe I'll take him around higher than I would have.
There you go. Look at us coming together. I love it. All right, so let's talk about my last one here, which is Nate Pearson. Like clearly another young guy, and it was not good last year. And I would say, once again, I love the guys that come up right away with big expectations, fail, and then I'm all about taking them the next year or 2 or whatever and taking shots on them then. I don't like to take shots when they come up there before they've even hit the major leagues. I just think it's just too much too soon sometimes. But I also remember, Roy Halladay coming up and being awful. I remember a lot of great pitchers coming up and being awful. And I'm not going to just necessarily dismiss Nate Pearson altogether because of that. A lot of the work he did in the minor leagues was very good. I think last year, the stopping and starting for every pitcher was very strange. They are creatures of habit. They are creatures of routine. And, I think it was a great opportunity that he got. I think there's a need for Nate Pearson, or at least a good version of him in that rotation if they're going to be competitive. So therefore, I don't want to wipe the slate clean, but I want to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. So that's where I'm looking, and I see Nate Pearson as not a guy who's going to give me 150 innings, but is he going to give me maybe 100 good ones at some point in the run of the season? And I think it's possible. And because of that possibility, I will take him over guys that I know are going to give me crap innings. I don't want 160 terrible innings for some 5th starter and some bad team. I just think I'd rather have the small sample quality with a little upside than the guy that I know isn't very good just going to eat innings around there. Like I want Nate Pearson, not Jake Odorizzi, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the innings make a big difference. I mean, 10 extra innings for Nate Pearson can make the difference here. Here's my problem with Nate Pearson, and it's almost the same issue I have with Dustin May. Why, with all his stuff and his velocity, why is his swing strike rate only 11%? Why is his strikeout rate only 20%? I feel like it should be higher for this stuff that he has,
Sure.
and that's what he's done lately since the AAA level in the minors, not just Major League level, but
No, you're
in
right.
AAA. In AAA, it wasn't even 8K per nine. So there's something off about that, and that's not to say that he can't improve. Here's the thing that really bothers me more. He's not a ground ball pitcher. His minor league, forget major leagues, minor league fly ball rate has been 45%. So you're running the risk of him screwing up your ERA. You want guys who have a higher ground ball rate, so just in case if they're your 6-7 starter, they don't crap up your ERA right off the bat. In a points league, he's going to be worth more because points league, he's not going to be able to crap up ERA. It's just the points. But in Roto, he is a risk for doing that. I would rather, at the same time, pick somebody else who's a little bit better skilled with that, like a Ryan Yarbrough, or take a good middle reliever with a shot at getting saves. Like, I'd rather slot in somebody else than Nate Pearson.
I would rather have Yarbrough too. I agree, and I
Okay.
feel like I'm higher on Yarbrough than some other people are.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's a name in particular. If you laid out Yarbrough on the board and I need a pitcher with Pearson, I will go with Yarbrough.
Yeah. But it's not that he
in that range I'm not crazy about.
Yeah, and it's not that he can't be good. I think that he has a lead, like you said, Howdy. He has the stuff there. But this year, I'm still worried that he doesn't have that track record. And I know it's late, but it's not that late a pick. You got to pick him in about the 16th, 17th round. At that side, I don't need somebody who's going to be my fifth starter that's going to crap up my ERA and ratios. I don't trust that. So I'll go with a little bit more safety later. Of course, if you're in a shallower league, like I said, sure, it's a little bit easier to throw a dart at him. But just caution with Pearson. I don't think he's arrived yet this year fully.
Yeah, I mean the Tyler Molleys of the world, guys like that I feel like, those later pitchers that seem to be ending up on my teams consistently. I feel good about those guys, but I don't want to write off Pearson yet altogether either. All right, so let's get to a little mailbag. I think we got time for one before a little fantasy and reality today. So let's go with Peter Solomon at Stinky Pete 2011. I don't know what was so stinky for Pete in 2011, but hopefully he's worked through this. Peter says, "Hey, yo, Joey P," which I love. I love that my people have already responded here on FantasyPros. Thank you. You know how to make a guy feel special. He says, "Hey, yo, Joey P, 6-team, 5x5 AL-only league with short benches. Any advice for smaller only leagues?" Now, I don't play in a lot of only leagues. In fact, I don't play in any only leagues. It's not my jam. So I'm going to put this to you, Ariel, because you are a madman. 5x5 AL-only in a 6-team league. So it's a very short thing with short benches. So it's a small kind of thing. That's a very unique situation. How would you approach that sort of roster construction? 6x6, AL only, 6 teams.
Yeah, I don't play it in mono leagues either.
Look
but
at you, again agreeing on something. I love it.
I mean, usually the thing with mono leagues, it's about the playing time. Playing time is at a premium. But if you're in a 6-team league.
Just 6, not 16, yeah.
Yeah, you can pick up, and a short bench, you can be able to pick up guys on the waiver. So it's going to play more like a 12-team mixed. You want to be a little bit more stars and scrubs tilt than you would, especially with your pitching. I think that the elite pitchers are going to be worth more for you than anything else. And the elite hitters also go up because the replacement level value is now a little bit wonkier relative to the pitchers, right? You can stream more pitchers than hitters, right? There's more people going to jump up into your player pool than hitters. So overall, the hitter value goes up more than pitchers, but the elite pitchers go up more compared to the smaller pitchers. So what I'm saying in this long-winded thing is stars and scrubs for pitchers, but tilt hitters even more than you would.
Good advice. Excellent. Peter, hopefully that helps you. And thanks again for your question. If you got questions for us, make sure you hit us up at Fantasy Pros and hit me up at Joe Pizapia 17. We'll try to answer them here on the show. We got more baseball stuff coming up this week. We got another mock episode. I think Bogman from In This League is going to join us for that. We got some Friday fun with Mike Curland. It's going to be a great week for baseball podcasts here. So now it's time for some fun, Ariel. You put the work in, so I want to have some fun with you. So this is a very easy game. I'm going to ask you 3 things, or make 3 statements, as it were, and you're going to tell me, is this a fantasy or reality, and then tell me why. Sound simple enough? Can you do that?
I'll go give it my best.
All right, here we go. So number 1, you're a Mets fan like myself. You have the Citi Field background behind you today. You feel renewed about the Mets because Steve Cohen is now the owner. Is that a fantasy or reality? And also, fantasy reality, no relation, right? That is a fantasy, no relation between you and Steve. Because I imagine if Uncle Steve was actually Uncle Steve, maybe you would not have to be here talking to me about fantasy baseball. Maybe you're actually running something in the team.
Yeah, he's actually my uncle, so that's a reality. Actually. Yeah. No, it's a reality for me, for the Mets, for Steve Cohen here. Yeah, he's I think he's going to take the Mets into the next league. Look, it's just the way that you saw the offseason. They're not being stupid. They're not throwing out money.
They're not just throwing money around.
And they're in every hand. They're in every hand, right? They're always mentioned, but they didn't they don't want to press a button when it's wrong. They push the other guy to the edge. Which is sort of what you got to do in an auction in fantasy baseball. Push the guy.
We gotta get Steve in our auction next time.
Yeah. Now you have to remember, this was not a fantastic free agent class here. You had very few real guys. There's a huge class coming up next year. Mm-hmm. So I think they're saving their money and being smart about what they're going to do. I think they'll get the Conforto extension done. I like what they're doing. So reality for me.
Yeah, I think they're going to get Lindor extension done too, much to your chagrin probably. But
I like Lindor. You get me all wrong. I like him for the team.
I'm teasing. I love Carrasco too. I thought that was that's the piece nobody
that's the part.
See, that to me, it's all about the Carrasco part of that because so desperately they needed somebody behind DeGrom this year, and I think
I call it the Carrasco trade. I don't know why anybody says it's the Lindor trade. It's the Carrasco trade.
Oh, I love it. It's a reality for me. I am back in. In fact, I might even go to a game again because I haven't been in years because I was protesting the Wilpons. I just would not go. So I do feel good, and it's weird to feel good about the Mets when you're a Met fan. Even 2015, I was kind of like, I don't know, it was very surreal. And then, of course,
I felt good in 2015.
I felt good in 2015. It was a beautiful run. And then, I don't know, then 2016, 17. Oh, let's move on.
I don't remember those years. I don't remember.
I know. Fantasy or reality? You want the DH in the National League. Again, the statement is want the DH in the National League, not whether it's going to happen or not. Fantasy reality, Ariel Cohen wants it in the NL.
I am a purist, so I really don't want it. I don't want it because I'm a purist, but it's grown on me more. I understand the reason for it. I'm okay with it. It helps the Mets this year tremendously. So if they did it,
Dominic Smith, please. Yeah, how about that?
Thumbs up if they do it. So I don't have a strong opinion here, but if I had to choose, I'm a purist. So I want to see DeGrom bat.
Okay. I definitely want it. It's reality. And I used to be a purist, but I have evolved. Pitchers don't hit in high school. They don't hit in college. Yeah. They don't hit in the minor leagues. They don't hit in the American League. The first time some of these kids are grabbing a bat, they got to go face Clayton Kershaw. And that is just nuts. It's just stupid. Yeah. It's not good. And from the investments people make in these pitchers now, watching them try to hit or even worse, run the bases.
The only argument on my side is purist, right? There's no other argument.
It's
right?
tradition, but at this point,
other than that, you're right.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I don't want to. I prefer National League baseball. I'm telling you, I do to this day. But I'm also, just at a certain point, you just got to throw your hands up and say, this is crazy right now. All right, last one. This is a little bit of fun. So last night, I guess, on the Golden Globes, I don't know if you caught this or not, but Al Pacino was dozing off during I was dozing off at the Golden Globes. I couldn't stay awake because it was so boring. But he basically, I guess they had the boxes. They had the famous people on Zoom. And at one point, Al Pacino, I guess, was like, well, and he was like nodding off, which was very funny. But I'll ask you, Ariel Cohen, fantasy reality, you watch award shows, whether it be the Grammys, the Oscars, I don't know, the Teen Choice Awards. I don't know. Do you watch any award shows that are non-sports related?
Nope. I had no idea the Golden Globes was on last night. My wife doesn't even watch award shows, so there's no reason for it to be on. No thanks.
So it's a hardcore fantasy for you. All right. You know what? It used to be reality for me, but then I got to a point where I thought, aren't awards for art kind of silly? Isn't that kind of a silly thing? Like, my art is better than your art. And how does one, disseminate whose art is better?
Yeah, it's a promotional thing for the industry.
That's all.
That's what it is.
It's like when you win Baseball Writer of the Year. It's just to promote the Ariel Cohen brand.
I watch those shows.
That's show he watches. That he watches, ladies and
It-
gentlemen.
Oh, well, listen, no, but it is a promotional show, right?
Yeah,
All these award
absolutely.
shows are promotional shows, and and that's not to say that it's not enjoyable.
Oh,
You
sure.
can watch it, and
I still watch the Oscars, basically, but I have
I
to
would
do it
say
on
that
DVR, and I have to fast forward because it's
maybe
like
the music.
7 hours long.
So the reason I'd watch it is for the production numbers. If you watch the Oscars, you see some great musical
Sure.
production numbers.
Well,
or if you
look,
watch
the Grammys has become a concert, basically,
Yeah.
the last couple of
Yeah.
years, which is kind of cool. Again,
Yeah.
I'll watch them on DVR. I can't watch them live, and I guess now we have too many choices, so we don't have to. But luckily, you have a lot of choices out there and fantasy analysts, and we're very lucky to have analysts like Ariel Cohen spend some time with us. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at ATCNY. Again, that's ATCNY. Check out his work at Fangraphs, at Rotoballer. Also, what's the name of the podcast too, and where everybody can find it?
Podcast is called Beat the Shift, and you can just go on any aggregator, any podcast aggregator, and type in Beat the Shift. We're now with Fangraphs. We're on Fangraphs Audio, so bolstering it there. And if you like fantasy strategy, well, I talk about strategy. I talk about a few players, but strategy. That's
So
really
important.
the way to win your league, in my opinion.
100%. We talk too much about players, too much about this and that, not enough about strategy. It's one of the cornerstones of the Black Book, and that's why I was so happy to have you be a part of it this year. And I want to thank you again for your time today. Go again, check him out on Twitter, and go check out the pod as well. And don't forget, boys and girls, FantasyPros.com/MLB contest is still going on for that Juan Soto signed jersey giveaway, thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. So head over to there, get involved. It is so simple to do it. Again, FantasyPros.com/MLB auction. And don't forget, just in a couple weeks, Fantasy Baseball Fest will be here live, so go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fantasy Pros MLB. Again, that's Fantasy Pros MLB. Subscribe, click the little bell for the notification. Friday the 12th. I was going to say Tuesday the 12th, but it's not. It is Friday, March 12th at noon. That's when it starts, noon to 4-hour baseball event. Dan Harris, me, some of the best baseball minds and most entertaining ones too. So you're going to want to watch it. You're going to want to listen to it. You're going to want to be a part of it. So join us for that. That'll do it for us today, but the story of the game goes on. For Ariel Cohen, I'm Joe Pisapia. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.